Very good evening, everyone. My name's Matt, and I work I'm in the operations team at Nature Trek. And tonight I'm going to take you to Thailand. Currently, we have two tours to Thailand. One is a 10-day tour, but since I spoke to you last year on Thailand, I've introduced a new 17-day tour just to encompass further sites in the north and in the central regions as well. So hopefully tonight I'll be able to give you a good exploration of this new tour. Okay, so this is a map of Southeast Asia with Thailand in the center there, and the red arrows here represent the new sites on this new tour. So we go to a few different areas in the center there, namely Krachan and the province of Phetchaburi, further sites in there. Then right up in the far north, we head up to Doi Lang, which actually straddles the Burmese border. So it's a very exciting region to go birding in. And the blue arrows is what is in the 10-day tour, but it's included in the 17-day tour as well. Okay, so we're going to start off in the Gulf of Thailand, and I'm sure, as you can see, the Eade capital of Southeast Asia. Now, this is a superb area for wintering birds, and in any afternoon, you could see upwards of 30 species of wader, which is quite incredible and will be very hard to come by anywhere else in the world. So we spent a couple of days here, and these are the sort of views that you would expect to see through a telescope, or you can also get extremely good views as well. And a lot of the flocks here are mixed wader flocks. So there's plenty of sandplovers here of both species, the greater and the lesser sandplover. But as you can see, just on the right-hand side there's a curlew sandpiper, a redneck stint, and also a broad-billed sandpiper as well. So it's a really exciting region to go birding in because you're not sure what you're going to come across in these flocks. So some of the commonest waders that you are likely to see here, this is the marsh sandpiper, extremely common throughout the salt pans. Of course, they're a scarce passage migrant to the UK, but extremely common out there and very nice to see, and they show extremely well as well. Now, the redneck stint, this is the smallest waders that occur in the salt pans, and closely followed by the Temming stint here, which is on the left, and the long-toed stint, which is on the right. So this is just some of the commonest species that you would expect to see on your first afternoon in Thailand. Thankfully, it's only a 90-minute drive from Bangkok airport, so as soon as you land, you're pretty much out birding straight away. But of course, the reason why lots of bird watchers come to Thailand is to see the specialist wader species, and some which are critically endangered and also near to extinction as well. So the first up here, this is the Asiatic dowitcher, an extremely rare bird in Southeast Asia. And each winter, roughly 50 birds winter around these salt pans in the Gulf of Thailand. However, at Paktale, which is this site here, there's normally only between 5 or 10 birds that winter here. So it's a very hard to see species, but most tours we do see them. Of course, in the foreground as well, you've got some black-tailed godwits there, very similar to the dowitcher. And of course, you've got some black-winged stilts as well. But of course, the main reason why people come to Thailand, and especially Paktale salt pans, is to see one of the most iconic species of bird in the world. And that is this one here, the spoon-billed sandpiper, an absolute superb bird. And there's now fewer than 200 breeding pairs in the world. So they breed up in northeast Russia, and they migrate south, and majority of the birds winter around these parts, and also in China as well. Now, the reason for their decline is that their breeding grounds are fine, their wintering grounds are suspect, but it's the passageway on their way south. There's not enough resting stops for these birds to recover, and that is why they are not doing so well. And they are certainly could well be on the extinction list in the next century. So a very special bird to see, and it is a real privilege to see a spoon-billed sandpiper on these salt pans. So there it is there. Again, in with a nice mixed flock. So we've got a Kentish plover and redneck stint on the right, and as we trail left, a lesser sandplover as well. But it's a spoon-billed sandpiper is what we're here to see. And there's a close-up photo of it with its wonderful spatula-like bill. An absolute superb bird. So while we're down in the coast, we do take a boat trip out onto a sand spit. So we first go through these mangroves, and here's where we hope to see the Chinese egret, quite a rare bird, in fact, in the Gulf of Thailand, despite being so close to China. So again, a very special bird to see and easily identifiable by the paler legs, the paler bill, and the long fluffy crest as well. Now, once we're out on the sand spit, these are the birds, again, that we're hoping to see. To increase our wader list, we could easily end up with 35 species of wader if we're lucky in the afternoon. And this is the Malaysian plover, showing off its bright chestnut nape on the back of its head. And this chap, the white-faced plover. Now, this bird has actually recently been split from the Kentish plover. It's quite hard to understand why it was ever lumped with Kentish plover, but now rightly it is its own species. So once we finished off on the coast, we head inland to Phetchaburi rice fields and cultivations, and this is where we hope to see one of Asia's most rapidly declining breeding birds, and this is the yellow-breasted bunting, once abundant across East Asia and also a regular migrant here to the UK. It's now extremely rare here in the UK, but equally so in East Asia, and that's because most birds are illegally trapped for food. So it's a very sad state of affairs for this bird, and again, another bird which could soon well be on the extinction list. Okay, so once we finished up in Phetchaburi, it's quite a quick tour I'm giving you this evening, so please bear with me. But we head now to Kang Krachan National Park, which is very close by to the salt pans, roughly an hour drive inland, and we stay on the outskirts at this wonderful lodge. This lodge is, in fact, owned by a birdwatcher, a very keen birder, and the grounds are set up specifically for European birders. So there's many clearings and hides and feeding stations for the birds to come down. So the photographic opportunities are also superb. So here's just a little photo of the accommodation there. And this site does have its own small lake as well. So of an early morning or late afternoon, you can come down to the lake and, for example, watch stork-billed kingfishers kingfishing away, cinnamon bitterns in the reeds, black-browed reed warblers. The list is endless. It really is a fantastic place for bird watching and resting as well. So very close by to this lodge, again owned by the same guy, is this clearing, roughly a 5-minute drive away on the outskirts of the national park. And here a screen has been set up with a small pond in the middle, and it's basically been set up to view these forest-dwelling species, birds that you probably almost certainly would not see in the forest interior, just because it's so the birds are so elusive. So some of the birds we expect to see here is the oriental magpie robin. Now, this is a common bird throughout Asia. However, it's surprisingly tricky to find in Thailand, but at these clearings, it's actually quite easy to see. So just a good reason as to why these clearings have been put in. Greater necklace laughing thrush is another great bird to see, and laughing thrushes roam through the undergrowth in large feeding flocks, so they're very easy to keep track of. White-rumped shama, this is another hard to see bird in the forest interior, yet at this clearing. Most birds come down and have a nice wash. And as you can see from my photos here, the views are exceptional as well. Puff-throated babbler, another very tricky bird to see in the forest interior, but here we are, just on the edge of the small pond, and they come down in very large numbers and again show extremely well. You probably can see from the photos that they are quite grainy. That is because it is late afternoon, early evening, so the light is very low. But again, this is probably the main bird to see at these hides. This is a Siberian blue robin, a wonderful male. And it's actually quite interesting when you're at this hide in the late afternoon, because the first few hours, the females come in and they kind of tease you, and then the younger males come in, and then eventually, just as light really starts to drop, the males come in, and it really is a wow moment to see a Siberian blue robin in its wonderful plumage there. Stunning bird. And last but not least, a bird that is practically impossible to see in the forest, but quite easy at these clearings. This is a slaty-legged crake, and that showed extremely well. It came out a couple of meters in front of me, so I had to remain very silent whilst I got this photo. A wonderful birding area. And as Tom saw in Borneo, you can also see in Thailand, this is a mouse deer. Again, almost impossible to see out in the open, but very nice, easy here with the fruit for it as well. A really wonderful species. Righty, so that is our area pretty much around Prithviraj province, around the Gulf of Thailand. So for the next part of the trip, we head north of Bangkok. It was only by about a 1 hour drive, and we head to Kariai National Park. This is a superb national park full of birds, but it's also really good for mammals as well. So especially the rarer mammals, chance of clouded leopard here, black bear, smooth-coated otter, just some of the mammal species that you're likely to see here. Really great area. And what's different here from Kang Krachan is that there's many forest trails throughout the national park, so it's really easy to get off the main road and into the forest proper. Really great place. Great hornbills are really common here, and you can often hear them before you see them because their wings are so broad. They really do make an amazing sound when they fly over. An absolutely superb bird. Long-tailed broadbills. Now, broadbills are certainly interior birds, but they're extremely brightly coloured, and they move around in large flocks as well, so quite easy to keep track of. And this cartoon character-like long-tailed broadbill is surely a must-see bird in the avian world. It really is a cracking species. Another broadbill, the black and yellow broadbill. Once again, another superb bird, much smaller, but they give off a very high-pitched noise and are highly detectable as they usually sit out on exposed branches. And just look at the base of that blue bill there. I mean, you can understand why it's called broadbill. An absolute superb bird. Now with East Asia, of course, what most people want to see are pitters. Now pitters are highly secretive, and I'm sure for those of you that have seen pitters in Asia or maybe Africa, Australasia, that any view of a pitter is a very special moment in the birding scene. And in Thailand at Kariai National Park, you can see at least 2 species of pitter, whether these are at clearings in the forest or just along footpaths. And at Kariai, you can get the best of both. So this bird was at a clearing, this blue pitter, which came in to feed quite late on in the afternoon. But also there's a chance of eared pitter, and these can be seen along the footpaths and mostly detectable by rummaging around in the undergrowth. You can often hear them moving the leaves, tossing the leaves around, and that's just how you detect an eared pitter. And this is a rather distorted view I got of one when I was last in Thailand, but once again, an incredible sighting, and just goes to show how great Kariai National Park really is. Now we will have a few early excursions out of the melt, and this is really to catch up with the pheasants. One such as Siamese fireback, an absolute wonderful bird, is certainly one we should see on the roadside. So you don't really have to go traipsing through the forest. This bird is most often seen alongside the road. But if you do go into the forest, you can often hear them displaying, and that is when you get to see their fire-coloured back. It really is a sight to see, and yeah, you just have to go there. It's absolutely wonderful. Now, another sought-after bird by bird watchers around the world, the coral-billed ground cuckoo. Once again, a forest dweller and really tricky to see. Some years they're quite easy, and some years they're near impossible. Thankfully, the year I went, they were quite easy because there were free birds around a feeding area and they were highly reliable. But this bird is certainly not guaranteed, but we certainly tried for it. Thankfully, our guide is a local guide, so he's always in the know of what's about and where the best sites are for these birds. So coral-billed ground cuckoo is certainly a target bird on this tour. Now, as I said, Kariai is also really good for mammals. East Asian porcupines can often be seen roaming around the campsites at night. Really great species there, and white-handed gibbons. These often perform a wonderful dawn chorus across the forest, and can often be seen during the day as well. You've got to go to more open areas to see them, because Carrii is rather flat. It's not very hilly, so it's quite hard to get an angle on the trees, but more often than not, you will come across a white-handed gibbon on this tour. And lastly, for the mammals, Carrii is excellent for Asian elephants as well, and especially in the cleared areas, just along the main road as well. So again, the reason why we stay outside the national park, so we stay in a really nice hotel just outside, and really the main reason for that is to avoid the temptation of walking the forest trails very early on in the morning, because this is more than likely where the elephants will be. So to avoid that or further complications, we make sure we arrive slightly later than first light to ensure that elephants have gone back into the forest. But you can get views such as this. You can be very lucky. It's a wonderful place. So now we're going to head up to the far north, and there's two main sites that we visit here. Doi Antanon, that is the highest point in Thailand. We spend a couple of nights here, and then we head further north up to the Burmese border, up to a site called Doi Lang, which is probably my most exciting bird watching spot in the entirety of Thailand. A really great area. So we start at Doi Antanon, and this is basically a single tarmac road all the way to the top, and there's a few forest trails along the way as well. And the same for Carrii, we stay just outside the national park, just so we can cover lots of ground within during the day. So this is the view from the very top. If you do join this tour, please take thermals, a warm coat, hat, gloves, because it is very, very cold at dawn. And we will be there for dawn on one morning to catch up with the many special birds that you can see near the summit. So Doi Antanon is mainly known for its waterfalls, and along these waterfalls, of course, they're spectacular to see, but the birds here are also different from other sites in Thailand and that we visited so far. So blue whistling thrush, these are very common and act very much like blackbirds. Plumbeous redstart is another wonderful bird to see. White-capped redstart, another cracker, superb bird. But probably most sought after are the forktails. Now, this is a slaty-backed forktail. This is one of 4 species of forktail that can be seen in the national park. And they're just wonderful. It's almost like a pied wagtail on steroids. Very large, chunky bird, really long forked tails, and they give off a very high-pitched noise, and that is basically so that noise can penetrate the flowing water. An absolute wonderful, wonderful family. So this is a nature trek group right up at the summit, and here's where we expect to see many special species. So dark-sided thrush, this is a great bird to see. This is a Himalayan speciality. So they breed up in the Himalaya, and during the winter, they come down into Southeast Asia, but very small numbers into Thailand. Gold sunbird is, again, another wonderful bird to see. And again, these can be seen only at the summits, so they're very altitudinal species. Okay, last but not least, sorry, that was a very short tour around Doi Antanon, and I just realised I'm slightly overrunning. So this is the area of Doi Lang. So this area straddles the Burmese border, and it's quite amazing, and that you can actually walk through the border into Burma and see some very special birds as well. White-gorgeted flycatcher, crested serpent eagle, and Himalayan cutie. Cutie is almost like pitters in the trees, a really wonderful bird, and as they bounce around the treetops. Now, Thai photographers set up a number of feeding stations along this road, and here's where we expect to see a number of Himalayan specialities again. So this is the male Siberian rubythroat, an absolute cracking bird, and they really do show this well. So these are the exact views that I had. Absolute wonderful bird. Rufous bedding Notava, once again another superb bird. An ultramarine flycatcher, again an absolute cracker, showing extremely well. And probably the most sought after on this mountain is the Hume's pheasant. Now, this isn't a great photo. This was seen very early in the morning, and that low light, quite cloudy, misty, but an absolute striking pheasant, and certainly a bird that we hope to see on this tour. And giant nuthatch is the last bird that we really hope to see. Now, this was actually in Burma, through the borders. You don't need a passport stamped or anything. You just walk through with the tour guide. But this is where we hope to see this globally threatened bird, the giant nuthatch. Probably twice the size, maybe 3 times the size of the nuthatch we see here in the UK. So a real cracking bird. So we end this 17-day tour. I'm on Doi Lang before catching a flight all the way back down to Bangkok. And this is a great area, a great time to witness the sunset over the Burmese mountains very close by. So these are the dates for 2023 for this 17-day tour. I really hope you can join us next year. And if you do have any questions, please feel free to get in touch. But for now, thank you very much for listening. I will stop sharing my screen and hand you back to Kerry. Thank you very much.